Whoa, hold up before you click dislike or start writing the world's nastiest comment that you can think of or unsubscribe. Hear me out on this one. Roll the intro.
Damn it, boy.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the subject today is turbo trash? And obviously, for the most part, turbo is not trash whatsoever. There's plenty of YouTubers out there putting turbos on their Hondas. We're definitely only going to be talking about Hondas today because, you know, Honda Street Garage. So yes, there's plenty of people out there making great power, having a lot of fun with turbo, and there's so many good examples that you could definitely find here on YouTube. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because a lot of people come to my videos that are kind of beginners and they just kind of want some info or some insight on what the best choice for them is, and this is basically going to be kind of a pros and cons of when you should, you know, go ahead and you know, get that turbo kit you've been looking at, or maybe you should just think about giving it a pass for a while, depending on your situation. I get this question over and over and over more than any other question, where people or you know, beginners and newbies kind of send me a question that basically says this: Hey Mark, I'm a big fan of the channel. I'm looking at building a B20 VTEC. Putting it together, I want to put a turbo kit on it, make about 450 wheel horsepower, also daily the car, and I have a very tight limited budget. So, and because I get that question over and over again, sometimes I direct people to maybe make another choice or change their expectations. If you are familiar with building Hondas and putting a turbo on a Honda, 450 wheel horsepower is a tough mark to hit, especially on a tight budget. Can it be done? Yes, it definitely can be done, but is it going to be reliable enough for a daily? So this brings me to the point that when you're building a car or buying a car and you're looking at a car, there's three main factors that come into building a car or buying a car, which is cheap, fast, and reliable. And usually you get two of those. So you can get cheap and fast, that's very easy, but you're gonna leave the reliability side out for a bit. Or you can get fast and reliable, but it's definitely not gonna be cheap. Or you can get cheap and reliable, which means it's not gonna be fast. So you have to sit back and look at your situation and your expectations for what you want if you're thinking about going turbo. There's definitely nothing wrong with going turbo. Me personally, obviously, I haven't been the biggest fan of having a turbo for a number of reasons, and that's mostly because I like the reliability of all motor. I like the character of all motor. I like having traction, and I'm not that big of a fan of basically drag races, so to speak. I like going on curvy roads and having fun that way. I get a lot more enjoyment out of it. A turbo in a front-wheel drive Honda driving around the mountains isn't really the best idea because you just apply too much power and spin the tires very quickly. That's why, if you've noticed any of my mountain run videos, Steven does a great job of staying in front of me with his 130 horsepower D15B single cam. And that type of driving power is definitely not everything. It's definitely not what my particular situation in my car is looking for. Now, however, there's plenty of you out there that live in places with straight, flat roads, and it's part of the scene or maybe part of your local car culture to, you know, drive fast, do some drag races. What is going to get you there, or what should your expectations be? Now, in my experience, one of the most reliable, cheap turbo setups that I could think of is basically going with a B20 VTEC. You can basically get an eBay turbo kit, ARP head studs, leave just about everything stock, push about anywhere from 10 to 12 PSI, and you will push about 300 horsepower or more, even 320. Obviously, you'll need all the things to go along with a turbo setup that you would need. You know, the turbo kit, the intercooler, the injectors, ECU tune or chippable ECU that can be tuned. And then of course the most important part is actually going to a dyno and having it tuned properly so you can get the most out of it. Now, is it going to be reliable is the main question on this situation. For the most part, yes. And sometimes no. It all depends on how you bolted that turbo kit together, because one of the things that constantly seems to go wrong with turbo Hondas is that bolts tend to fall out of the the wastegate or the manifold, or they break. It's a thing that you constantly have to keep up with and look after and maintain, especially if you go with the eBay kits. You can go with a much more high-end, expensive turbo kit that's a little bit more planned out, that can tend to hold together and not really fall apart under lots of stress. Now, as far as your engine is concerned, it might be better to go with an LS, B18, B18B, B18A block, because the cylinder walls are a bit thicker. This is usually the better choice if you're going from B20 VTEC or LS VTEC. The better choice is the LS VTEC, especially if you plan on pushing any more than 10 or 12 PSI. It can be done, but generally speaking, after a lot of pulls and a lot of abuse, bad things can start to happen to B20s with the cylinder walls. But in our experience, if you've kept up with the channel long enough, Charlie had a drag car that had a high compression B20 block, completely stock, a GSR head, completely stock. It had ARP head bolts, a Turbonetics turbo, eBay turbo kit all around, Edelbrock intake manifold, and it made, I think, 315 horsepower, somewhere around there, with about 8 or 9 PSI, 10 PSI. So somewhere in that ballpark. And it was tuned and it was reliable. We beat it up a lot. However, in that type of situation, I wouldn't say that it's the greatest idea for a daily driver. Now, it can be, but it's all dependent on how you drive it. If you're someone who likes to just bang gears and boost the ever-living out of it, then by all means, the reliability factor is going to go down depending on how you drive it. And that's one of the big factors. But if you put that turbo kit on and you kind of conservatively drive the car, it can last a long time for sure. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the turbo setup, but I think it needs to be understood that it's not a one and done situation long term. I think a lot of people have this idea that they're going to buy these parts, they're going to install them, they're going to have a tune, and then that's it. It's going to last forever. Now, there are plenty of cases where it does. However, that's probably because the car either doesn't get driven a lot or is not driven hard a lot. And I'm sure there's a few cases out there where somebody beats it up every day and, you know, has no issues. But for the most part, if you're looking to, you know, go full tilt and actually build your bottom end, Hunter Tune has got some great videos on how to do this. Hunter Tune has got a great example of how you can put together a B20 VTEC turbo and make lots of power and get it going down the road and it'd be relatively reliable. I don't think Hunter's setup is probably the cheapest in the world, because he definitely went to the extent of replacing the pistons and rods, and it can be more expensive to go with a piston and rod setup. But the other thing that Hunter Tune has that most people out there that are trying to get into it for the first time is Hunter has a lot of experience. That experience basically translates to cost, because Hunter's done many setups before, and if you really count it up over the years, that costs money. Experience is education, and education costs money. The rule still applies of cheap, fast, and reliable. What are you looking for? What do you really want? If you're thinking about doing a swap for your car and you still want to be able to daily it and still have under a decent budget, I would say maybe not go for that turbo kit just yet. I would say, you know, get used to the car, you know, have it swapped for a little while, make sure that it's nice and reliable, and then add that turbo kit on down the road. And I think you'll have a much more pleasant experience in that regard, because I've met a lot of people and heard a lot of cases of people just having a ton of money invested into a motor setup that has never run and a turbo kit. They've gone through all this effort and time and money, and then something goes wrong. They're not 100% sure or experienced with how to hook everything up and all the ins and outs of dealing with a turbo kit. Now, one of the biggest things that I will also say, that if you are going turbo and you haven't taken it to a dyno yet, generally speaking, you want to run stock injectors just to get the car running, car just moving and going before you put those big injectors in. Usually it's ideal to leave the charge pipe off, run stock injectors, and then when you get to the dyno tuner, you then install the charge pipe and swap out to the bigger injectors, put it on the dyno and have it tuned, and you're gonna have a much happier experience that way, I think, or at least that's what I've known from my experience. Now, as far as turbo B20 VTECs are concerned specifically, I mean, look at Zosh. Zosh has done very well with his. He actually asked me a few times about what to do before he went turbo, and basically gave him this formula, and it's worked so well. However, he's having issues where I believe he's going to replace his block because he's probably got some cracked land rings or something going on. He's having a lot of blow-by issues. And the other thing that you need to be aware of is that if you plan on really making any sort of power, especially with a B series or even D series, or K-Series. Positive crank ventilation system or PCV system is definitely required. Definitely helps to have it vented on the valve cover as well. Also, I'm not the biggest turbo expert. I think that maybe I get a lot of these questions because I try my best to respond to questions that I get on Instagram. Now, if you have questions about turbo, go check out Hunter Toon's channel and also talk to him. I believe Hunter's got a website where you can actually get injectors and other things from him, and he's got a lot of insight on his channel, knows what he's doing in that department, so go check him out. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this thing up pretty much. I hope I didn't piss everybody off to the moon about this. This is where you go to the comment section and go ahead and type away your experience and what you know worked. Now, once again, I'm sure there are plenty of you out there that have great experiences with being cheap, fast, and reliable, but mostly what this discussion was for is beginners who are looking to get into it. They see what YouTubers are doing, they see what other people around are doing, and they kind of want to know the secrets. So with that respect, turbo is definitely not trash in the regard of once it's done right, it's really done right. But at the same time, for the most part, it can be a high maintenance type of setup. You know, tires, clutches, manifolds cracking, you know, turbos going bad, blowing seals. So it's an ever evolving thing. So if you're looking to go turbo and you're fine with keeping up with maintenance basically, or having to replace parts more often than say an all motor setup, expect that. Simply put, you know, maybe all motor is the right choice for you and what you're looking to do. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to SI Rico, who runs the Honda Bay's Facebook page. He's also got a YouTube channel. There's a link in the description below. Here's some pictures of his car. Really cool guy, and he's supported the channel for a long time. So this is where I'm gonna wrap this video up. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you haven't already. I have new merch, so there's a link in the description below as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Keep building your dreams.